So I'd like you to get your cell phones and put my number in it right now, because the things that we talk about sometimes are quite intimate or hard to talk about. I call it discussing the undiscussable. So if you'll just put my number into your phone, and if you have a question, I will answer questions as we go through the seminar. And I checked with the organizers, and lunch is 50 minutes, and we're getting started a little bit behind schedule. So if you're not too hungry, I'll let you go a little bit later than the planned in session time. Is that okay with everybody? So the ground rules is this is a workshop, it's a breakout, and this is totally about your needs in terms of managing the next generation and having conversations that you know in your heart of hearts that you need to know. And so when I say discuss the undiscussable, this is the talking stick that I use with farm families. And I've coached now over 650 farm families over the last few years. And so raid your kids' Beanie Baby collection or stuffed toy collection and start thinking about what you need to get together on your pork production farm, or as a supplier to a pork family, what kinds of things you need to get going to have better meetings. So if everyone's got that number in my phone, that would be great. On your chairs are a copy of my book. That's my gift to you to take home to your family so that the message continues. And also, if any of you are suppliers, there's some people in here who are feed suppliers, you're more than welcome to take that book home with you and give it to a farm family that you know would really benefit from the message. Okay, so we're good to go? You got your seatbelt on? All right, well, this is okay. So my first question for you this morning, when you think about managing the generations, what is it that you want? So you can text me. We'll see how the cell phones are working today. 534-7466. My area code's 204. You have that in your phone. I'm just curious, if I was to ask you, in terms of managing the transition on your farm, managing the generations, what is it in your heart of hearts that you really want? Ah, good. That wasn't from you, that was somebody else. I was talking to the Canadian Bison Association, and they said, "Oh, Elaine, I love your red suit." I go, no, it's not about the clothes, it's all about you. What do you need? Okay, anybody want to tell me what is it that you really want? Or you can shout it out. A profitable farm, a legacy, security. You kind of like to know what the plan is. I was really anticipating that this session would be filled with about 50 30-year-old pork producers, because that would be you. Okay, great, good. Okay. I would like to know how to have a family and have a farm. Well, I think you know how to have a family, but I think the question really is the work-life balance, because being a pork producer is a very consuming job. And when I speak, sometimes I say, no matter what we do on this farm, the work is never ended, right? And no matter how much we do, it's never enough, right? And so the culture of agriculture is really, really key that we understand. Okay, somebody else wants to have tradition, and maybe that's legacy. And another person said they would like their family to be happy. So what I'd like to do this morning is just go through the things that I have seen in my years of coaching that are really important. And on the screen it says paid well. Are you being fairly compensated as a young producer so that you actually can pay for your family living costs and get something that you can also use for debt servicing? This session is sponsored by Farm Credit Canada and Farm Management Canada. And the problem with young farmers is they're just barely getting enough to live. And so how many people can your operation actually support? So are you being paid well? Is there respect for both generations or all generations? And we'll talk about the different generations. Our son is 27 and married. Ian will always be Wes Froese's son. That position will never change in terms of the family dynamic. But what is changing is that Ian and Wes are growing together to be equal business partners. Father and son will always be the family system, but business partners will be the business system. And that's what you have to wrap your head on, because I have young men who say, "Oh, Elaine, my dad still treats me like I'm 12 years old." I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Why do you allow that behavior?" So one of my one-liners is, you get the behavior you accept. And the other thing that every generation is looking for is opportunity. The older generation wants an opportunity not to work so hard anymore. Our backs get older. We don't want to climb bins. We don't want to be out with the pigs maybe as much as we used to be. And then the younger generation is also looking for an opportunity to grow. So when you look at this, it's not that different. And these three phrases are from the work of Dr. Jennifer Deal, who just had an article in the Country Guide magazine called The Millennial Myth. And I don't know what your expectations were today for this, but these are my three core messages right here. Every farm in this room needs clarity. What do you expect from me as the mom, as the farm partner? What do you expect from the successor? What do you expect from the older generation? And then how can we create certainty? It's the pain of not knowing. And so a young farmer will phone me up and say, Elaine, I just want to know the plan. I've been here for 11 years. I was promised to have an agreement in place at year 5. Another 6 years has just gone by. All of you remember the year 2000, correct? How long ago was that? 16 years ago. They say life is like a roll of toilet paper. The closer you get to the end, the faster it rolls. So some of us are getting closer to that end of the roll, but my oldest client was 96. What's wrong with that? His sons were 75. If he was 96, they were 75. They were not getting ownership till 75. That is not right. And then the last thing is, the reason I'm sending you home with a copy of Do the Tough Things Right is today is the start of your succession planning journey and your communication journey on your farm and in your supplier business. Because you can't think that this is a roundup solution. It's not like going to happen in 10 days, okay? It's going to be an ongoing process and an ongoing journey. So what needs to end is the uncertainty. It's the not knowing. It's the stress of, I have no idea if we can take on more debt because I don't even know what my net worth is because I don't get a regular income. I don't know if the cost of production on this pig farm is decent. I don't know the numbers. So the not knowing is a place of high stress and high anxiety called the neutral zone, and that's what needs to end, and what needs to begin is clarity. So my goal is for you to ask me whatever questions you want to ask me. I'll be your group coach for the next hour, and I want to help you find more certainty, more clarity, and more commitment to get things done. Does that sound like a plan? Okay? So this is what you will traditionally see in the literature. Anybody born before 1946 is considered a traditionalist. And Rob Syke, who spoke this morning, talked about those people who had an abundance mentality versus a scarcity mentality. My father was born in 1926, so in the Depression he was a teenager. Guess what my dad had? A scarcity mentality. But he also had a bit of an abundance mentality because he was always happy if he had 3 meals, a bed, and a place over his head. That was it. So his need for family income was about $18,000 a year off his pension, which is a lot different from another man that I meet and work with whose need is $120,000 a year income stream. Do you understand that your parents are not going to die typically at 60? Do you understand that? So that what you
Some of us would be dead already.
Yeah, some of us would be dead already, so great. Thank you for that. Exactly. I'm turning 60 in October, and the average age of a widow in Canada, according to the Globe and Mail, is 56. So my biggest fear would be becoming a widow before Wes has given all the information and transition that we need from our son, Ian, to be able to run the farm. Okay? So what I'd like to think about here is if you look and see where you fit, many people in this room will be boomers. Some of you will be Gen X. The Gen X kids are the ones who are a lot more skeptical. The millennials are my children, born after 1984, and 88 is when our kids were born. And millennials tend to be very collaborative. But Dr. Jennifer, when she wrote the article in Country Guide about the millennial myth, I kind of agree with her. I'm not going to put you in these categories today. I'm just going to tell you where everybody fits. And the Gen Edge kids are the ones that have way more technology, even savvy than the young people that came before them. This is how I want you to categorize people today. We have the founders, who are typically the grandparents. So think about your grandma and grandpa. Are any of you 5th generation Ontario farms here in the room? Okay, we have 1 5th generation. Anybody 5 or 6? Okay, 4 generation farms. Okay, 3 generation farms. Okay, 2, And anybody starting out? Okay. So in terms of how I look at it as a coach in farm transition, managing the generations, these are the generations. Grandpas typically like to hang on to cash and equity because they want to make sure they have enough, correct? Owners are typically our age, the boomers, and then the successors would be our son's age in the mid-20s, and then adult children and teens are the ones that are coming up. Does this make sense? So when I talk about the different stages of farm transition, this is what I'm talking about. So we're going to do a little stretching exercise. All of you who are in your 20s, stand up and stay standing, okay? Okay. In your 20s, guys, your goal is to become independent, i.e. do your own laundry, make your own meals, get a college education, and find what you like to own and what you like to do, okay? So stay standing. All of you in your 30s, stand up. Okay, got a good bunch of 30-year-olds. The reason the 30-year-olds are in this seminar is because they're worried and they're exhausted. They are married, having children, paying mortgages, and working an off-farm job. Am I right? Some of you working full-time on the farm, which is a sweet place to be. If you can be full-time on your pork farm, that's awesome. Okay, so in your 30s, it's about mastering success. But those of you who are in your late 30s are going to join very soon the 40 group. So all of you in the 40s, stand up. And the 40s are the ones who are thinking, hey, Elaine, I don't have my name on anything. I don't have share agreements. I don't have operating agreements. I don't have a buy-sell agreement. I don't have an idea what my equity is, okay? So I'm trying to figure out what am I going to do to get some power and control on my life, on my farm. Okay, all of you in the 50s, I can still stand up with this one. So if you're in your 50s, can you stand up? Thank you. Okay, what does it say for 50s? It says, no, I don't want to dust anymore. Is that what it says? No, it says quality of living. This is when the back starts getting sore and you think about, you know what, I don't want to work quite this hard anymore. Any of you in that camp? Doug. Yes, Doug is not wanting to work so hard anymore. Okay, anyone in your 60s? Mr. Stewart's going to stand up. Mr. Stewart,
Am I the only
he's
one?
the oldest one. Thank you for gracing us with your presence.
It's the wisdom, right?
It's the wisdom years. Good, okay. And you'll see in Stewart's category it says starting over. Working when he wants to be, does he want to be a so-called hired man again? Okay, everybody can sit down. You had a good break. That's good.
Going to be.
Okay. So the deal is, with this understanding your age, tasks, and needs kinds of things, is to figure out how old are you anyway? And chronologically, this is just a guide for us as a coach to figure out what are the tasks. So if I get a 40-year-old farmer on the line phoning me, he says, Elaine, my dad is 62. He still owns everything. I said, oh, I know why you're angry. He says, yeah, absolutely. I've been putting 20 years of sweat equity into this farm, and I have nothing to show it in my name. And I'm a little concerned. And if he's 40, how old are his children? How old are his children? They're 20, right? And they're going off to Guelph or whatever college they want to go to, and they're coming back and saying, when do I get to have my say in how this farm is run, okay? So, the legacy is not just about money and land. It's also about how you wish to be remembered and how you want things to be fulfilled. But the big thing that we want to do through this, all these conversations that we have around the generations, is to build trust. Please just slip into a chair if you're holding up the wall at the back, that's fine. Okay, so we're going to vote now. I'm going to open up the poll, hopefully. If you get your clickers in your hands there, the poll is open. I'd like you to vote with your clicker. Where do you see the crunch in succession planning around the communication issue? Is it keeping problems secret? People are too busy to plan. Fear of being pushed out. Unaffordable lifestyle. Oh, that daughter-in-law, she went to the city on the weekend and she like melted the credit card. I've heard that story. It's not me. It's not my daughter-in-law. Fragmented family life. So we're getting more blended families as well, okay? All right. So let's everybody vote. Should be more than 15 people in the room. Going once, going twice, and we're going to vote a few things because it's important as we go through this process to know that you're not alone, and it's also fun to see what other people are thinking. Okay, going once, going twice, we're going to close the poll. Boom. Too busy to plan. Yeah, what are you doing? Feeding pig? Going to pork meetings? Going to church on the weekend? Taking kids to hockey? Did you know University of Guelph did a study in 1997 why Ontario farmers do not have a will? It's because if you get a will, you're going to die. So if I don't get a will, I won't die. That's the logic, okay? So guys, this logic isn't working with me. So text me or tell me, shout it out, why are you too busy to plan?
I'll do it tomorrow.
You'll do it tomorrow. It's called the procrastination factor, right? The two biggest threats that I see in Canadian agriculture are, number one, procrastination, and number two, conflict avoidance. I have a degree in home economics, a certificate in conflict resolution and mediation, and my coaching designation. So I have a handy little tool called the binder tabs, which I'm going to pass around so you can see what it looks like. Scotiabank used to give these out with the Farm Legacy Factor, but I have other groups now that are making their own. But this is how you chunk it down. You put a section on action for meetings, you put a section for going to your lawyer, a section for your insurance broker, a section for your financial planner. And how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? That's what you have to do. So when the Canadian Federation of Independents did a study way long time ago, they found, look at this, conflicting vision with family and employees is almost 20%. But the biggest one was financing for the successor. And that's why I'm so pleased that FCC is a sponsor, because I am a coach who sends many young farmers to FCC or a lender of choice to find out, how much am I good for? If I want to start buying into this operation, how much money can I leverage? And for those of you young men, someone said they needed a family, they wanted a wife. My heads up to you is find women in agriculture who are partnered with you who are okay sleeping with a lot of debt. Because my daughter-in-law comes from a paycheck family, and somebody just snorted. Did you hear that? Yeah, so you're snorting because you're kind of agreeing in a way, because how you see debt, whether it can be a profitable good debt or bad debt, is also part of where the generations are at odds, right? My father liked to do things with not a lot of debt, whereas my brothers will leverage everything. So in your books, you don't have to go here right now, but in the books that you're taking home on page X, this is the list from Dr. John Fast, who I also have done some work with and studied with him. This is why you're not planning. It's because you're overwhelmed. So you have to figure out, where are you going to decrease your sense of overwhelm? And look, you can talk about your business plan. You can go to FCC, to the relationship officer, and get some financial management work. Some of you are in the room, I've already interviewed some of you who came today, and some of you have already got your team of advisors built. But look what else is up here. Communication. One of you just texted me and say, Elaine, I want my family to be happy. And I haven't bottled the fairy dust yet that I can sprinkle on you all and make you all happy. But I think people who know their role, people who know what's expected of them, and people who don't have any fear when they go through the grocery checkout and they know they have enough money for food and diapers, are basically fairly contented people. But my heart goes out to the people in agriculture who are treated still like slaves on a promise. Trust me, son, someday this will all be yours, is the biggest lie in agriculture. Because people die without wills in Ontario. 1 in 5 of you, I bet, does not have a will. And so you need to get that done before you get busy with putting the corn in. Other people don't have power of attorney. Other people have not talked to their executors. All of that is for when you die. But a succession plan is about communicating now different perspectives. Okay? We are in growth mode because we have a successor. There are other older farmers sitting in the room here who are also in growth mode because their sons and daughters want to be business partners in the hog operation. The other thing you have in Ontario is land pressure. Do you like paying $20,000 an acre for land? In our country, in the West, we're paying $3,000 and we think that's bad. Okay? So it's all relative. The other thing with managing the generations is whatever you want as the founder, as the owner, as the successor, as the next gen, Please communicate with respect. So when I asked you on this phone, what did you want? What do you want? Only 3 of you responded to me. Does that mean the rest of you don't know what you want yet? You've got to figure that out.
We don't know how to use the phone.
You don't know how to, no, that's not true, sir. I know that's not true. Okay. So the other thing I want you to understand is I cannot read your mind as a coach. And if you want to stay married and not get divorced on your farm, you cannot read your spouse's mind either. Love does not read minds. So what is your intent? Our intent is not to make our successor buy our farm. Why would that be? Do you think Ian can afford a multi-million-dollar farm? Absolutely not, right? It's impossible. Can your son or daughter afford to buy you out? No. So what is that? That's putting you in a bit of a pickle, right? So the action that's going to happen has to be a tax-efficient plan. It also has to be a plan where the effect is that you get what you need. So I'm just curious. So on my chart here, how much money does it take you to live at the level that you want to live? And how much money does the pork farm generate on this side? And how many kids do you have here that you want to give gifts to or give help to go to college at Guelph, pay a mortgage on the house in Kitchener, or just give them a leg up? This is called your personal wealth bubble. If you have a personal wealth bubble, if your intent is not to make your successor buy this entire multi-million-dollar farm, then you have to have another source of income. So not only are you going to get a will updated after this presentation, you're also going to get a financial planner. Because you need someone to tell you you are golden, you have enough money to live now, when you're 70, when you're 80, to your 90, and in my case, I know I'm good till 102. How do I know I'm good till 102? Because my financial planner and I have a plan for that to happen. But Ian cannot buy a multi-million-dollar farm if we expect our $100,000 or $120,000 a year draw from the farm, right? We have to have another source of income. So my question is, where's your income coming from and how much do you need? So text me back, tell me what you need, because I'm curious if farmers in Ontario need 100,000, 50,000, and don't tell me you need 28.5, because this is not 1981. Just saying, okay? You really have to figure that out. The other thing is, you told me you're too busy to plan. Do you go to a funeral when the guy down the concession road dies? When your landlord dies, do you go to his funeral? Yes or no? Why do you go? Why do you go to funerals? You go to pay your respects to the family, right? And stay connected, because that's what you do. But you interrupt your schedule to go to a funeral. So why wouldn't you interrupt your schedule to plan to have an appointment with a coach, with a financial planner, or with a lawyer, or basically with your family to get started talking about the bull in the middle of the room? So the first thing you have to do is just like what Rob said this morning about drifting down that river with the beer between your legs on the canoe. You're either drifting and going down the river, or you're going down the river with a plan. So you need to take charge. Whoopsie, shouldn't have done that. Okay. The next thing you have to do is not make assumptions, because how do you know what other people are thinking unless you start asking better questions? So Marilee Adams has this book called Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. I'm in the tax office with my father-in-law and my mother-in-law in 1992 after my father-in-law had fallen and had got lost in the Brooks gas station. I said, Wes, there's something wrong with Dad. So in about a few days, we got an appointment to start our succession plan. And at that meeting, Daryl Ritchie, who was our planner, said, just pretend Elaine's not in the room. What would you do if Wes died? And my in-laws said, oh, that's easy. We'd take back the farm. So was I the daughter-in-law having a drama fit? No, I am Irish, but that's okay. I like to tell stories. I'm not having a drama fit because I just turn to my in-laws and I say, that's very interesting. If anything happened to Wes, I would stay in Boisvene and raise the children here. I've given them 11 good years here, and I will continue on. And of course, now we fast forward from 1992 when we bought the farm to 2016, and I'm doing another succession plan, right? Because now my son needs to have certainty in his life. But don't assume anything. Do you want to stay living where you're living? Yeah, Elaine, I love my house. Good. So how's the next gen going to be at the main yard? Who's going to come and feed the pigs and close the bins and do the cropping and maintain the equipment if you're still in the main yard, okay? Another one is, again, ask deep questions and come from not just thinking about, well, what does this mean? How do you feel about debt? So Kendra, our daughter-in-law, now understands that she doesn't have to pay the land mortgage back in 1 year. They've got 20 years to do it. Play with possibility and don't prejudge the outcomes. Test things out. If you don't like your lawyer, are you allowed to get a different lawyer? Absolutely. We've just switched accountants because Ian wasn't happy with the service he was getting, so we chose someone closer to town that's easier for him to access. I'm in the process of hiring a new bookkeeper because I'm using virtual assistants, and my virtual assistant said, Elaine, I need to have a shift, so I have to make some adjustments. So you have to not prejudge the outcome. And here's the kicker. What does it mean to really, really listen? It's to say, what is it that you want? And someone just texted me again and said, Elaine, I want my family to be happy. And someone said, Elaine, I want $50,000 a year, but I did it 2 years at $15,000 because of pig prices. Are we able to live on very little when we have to? But you don't want to stay there for a long time, okay? The other thing I want you to do is give people time. The parents, i.e. most of us boomers, and your grandparents who may still be holding some of the gold, they don't like to be pushed. So they need timelines. So that's why if you have a family meeting and you put a date on the calendar, it's just like when the insurance guy is coming or when the feed guy is coming or the crop agronomist is coming, usually they have enough respect for you to call you and say, can I come and see you a Tuesday at 2, Doug? Would that work? You say, yeah, that'll work. So if someone's coming to your farm, you get ready for them. If someone's coming to facilitate your family, then you're going to get ready for them. So you need to get some timelines on there. And then the other thing is, what are you doing to keep your promises? Are you doing what you said you would do? Did you make a comment that when you get home from college, son, we'll set up an operating agreement? And this will be the schedule, and this is the range. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to transition the farm in one big chunk. You can do it in a range. So maybe somebody gets 10% shares when they come back from college. Then they get 35, 45, 55 till they have ownership stake. The other thing I want you to think about is boundaries. Do you realize that some of your daughter-in-laws do not want to farm with you? This is 2016. The next gen, the young farmers at the Managing Excellence Conference in Regina had a session on what they wish their parents understood. And one of the things they wish their parents understood is that this is 2016. And not every woman who in agriculture wants to be a full-time farm partner and be active. The other thing they wish the parents understood is that time is going by and we can't live without a plan. Are you 21 anymore? Are you 21 anymore? In your mind you might be, but your body certainly is not, right? We age, we die, and that's why we have to face our mortality. And that's why as women in agriculture, we also have to face how well could we manage our farms if something incapacitated our partners. That's a huge fear for me. Because I need Ian to be able to manage, and I need Wes to tell me, who would I draw on if you had a stroke? Or who would I draw on? And we have this reality because people in our area have crashed planes. And I have a girlfriend whose husband died in October at age 55, 12,000 acre farm, and her son Dan died in August, age 33. So 2 women who are friends of mine both became widows in less than a year. Okay? We age, we die. Then the other piece, and remember I said procrastination is killing agriculture? The other thing is conflict avoidance. So in my presentation today, I want to make you better. Just put that down, thanks. I want to make you better at embracing conflict resolution as a business risk management strategy and extending the olive branch. So number one, when you leave today, what are you going to do to empower your family? What can you do that you know you need to do to empower your family? Someone already took a book this morning before any of you ever came. She said, "Oh, Elaine, I talked to my brother last night. I told him you were coming. I found out he doesn't have a will. My brother's a multi-million-dollar farmer, and he and Dad don't have an agreement." I said, "Yeah." So I gave her my book. Now what's she going to do? She's going to go home and empower her family. How are you going to empower your family? Are you going to start having regular meetings? How are you going to increase profit? And how are you going to secure legacy? This is why I exist working full-time as a farm family coach. So here's what you need to think about. What is it that you're not talking about? Is it how much money you need in your heart of hearts to have the lifestyle that you want as you get older? None of you are retiring, correct? You are reinventing yourself, because most farmers don't really full-time retire. Do you agree or disagree? Somewhat, okay? Debt servicing, exit timelines. I am leaving the farm in 2020. I have to find a different place to live. And why do I know that? Because that's what we've decided with our coach. Gifts to non-business heirs. This piece here, how are you going to be giving things to your kids who are non-farm heirs? And is it your responsibility as parents to make all of your kids economically equal? No, it's not. If your daughter marries a doctor, are you going to make all of the siblings the same income level as the person who's married to a veterinarian? I don't think so. But parents don't talk about these things, and then we have arguments between the parents too. How many of you are afraid of divorce? Wriggle your right foot.
So your spouse doesn't see it.
So your spouse doesn't see it, yeah. Farming's in-law factor is written to address this issue. And if you go on my blog at elainefroese.com, there is a blog called How to Prevent Divorce on the Farm. And it just came out in Progressive Dairyman, and I've already got 2 phone calls about it, because divorce is a huge threat to agriculture. It wrecks your farm business, right? Not only that, it wrecks the family. So what are you doing to create a culture in your family where everyone feels loved and respected? Again, it's empowering your family. That's what this is about. And then not conflict resolution. So are you going to vote again? Put this on. Polling is now open. Okay. Checking for messages here. You all can vote. What is the main thing on your farm that you're not talking about, that you know you need to talk about? Someone said they just need enough to live. $50,000 tends to be a pork farmer's perfect number. Parents letting go, no timelines. We have no idea when this is going to happen. I got engaged because Wes put a ring on my finger. Hey, we've got a ring now. What comes next? A wedding date. I got married on Independence Day, July 4th. Always have fireworks on my anniversary. But that's a bit of an oxymoron, isn't it? Right? When you get married, it's interdependence. Fear of failure. A lot of grandfathers and owners are not transitioning because what are they afraid of? They're afraid of the next generation losing the whole kahuna. That's what they're afraid of. So here you go. Sweat equity compensation, 14%. Parents letting go, 19%. The biggest one for you guys, no timelines for transfer. Because you don't have time to plan. Well, start getting your act together. If something's really important to you, you're going to make it happen. So I trust that you're going to have that happen. So the ones that come up in my book, the first chapter is around fairness. How can we be fair to the children? And there's a wonderful analogy about fair and equal of 2 boys that are different heights standing on equal crates like Coke boxes. One can see over the fence to see the ball game, but the other one can't. Is that fair? No, but it's equal. They're both on the same size box, right? But then someone comes along and gives the short kid an extra box. And so now he's on 2 boxes and he can see over the fence and enjoy the ball game. And to me, it's the perfect thing for fair and equal, because our daughter will never farm. And our daughter has an invisible issue that doesn't allow her to create a lot of income. So the way we treat our children is fair, but it's different because each kid has a different need, right? So this is what you need to figure out. So if you want the undiscussable notes, some of it is in your proceedings, but if you just text this number, you will get a digital copy of my Key Challenges audit, which will help you find out for each person in your family what is their key challenge and their key issue. You also have a copy of it in your book, so when you take your book, you can copy that from there. And if you want to do it on your iPad, it's just at leadpages.co. Let's talk. Okay? Isn't quiet good? When you're having your family meeting, someone's going to drop a bomb. And there's going to be lots of silence at the meeting. And silence is okay because you have to let silence do the heavy lifting. And that's the term by Susan Scott. So again, let's be clear. We're not talking about when you're dead. We're talking about your business plan for how you're transitioning your business now. So labor transitions first. We have lots of 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds in the room right now doing the labor. Management. How are you planning for management to transfer? It's like Rob said, you can't let it drift. There has to be a plan for that to happen. And then the last piece is, do you want to transition different pieces of ownerships, or do you want your kids to have a holding company and you have a holding company? And Ian, our son, is in his late 20s. He has his own holding company, and we have our companies. Face your finances. Many of you sitting here don't have a will. You also don't have a hot clue what it costs you to live. So as a home economist, I'm going to tell you, in 2016, you need to figure out what is that number. How many families can your farm support? 2 or 3 brothers? Yeah, but the 2 or 3 brothers may also have an off-farm job. Here's another news flash. A young woman who has 3 children, who has an off-farm job and kids in school, she's now 35. She's tired. And she's no longer willing to be the operating line for family living. Did you hear what I said? She is no longer willing to be the operating line for family living. This is 2016. I'm done. I'm not working this hard to not see us get ownership. Do you see where this gets passionate? It's because she can't do it anymore. Her body, her time, her stress level, it's not working for her. Okay? So is there a successor? Let's do a vote here, just so that we have some idea in the room. Polling is open. Yes, there's one, more than one. No, haven't decided. Oh, Elaine, we could not talk about that. Are you kidding me? Vote. Is there a successor on your farm? It should not be a hard question, guys. Okay? Going once, going twice, boom. More than one. Oh, that's an interesting challenge here. How do you manage when there's more than one successor? 50% of you in the room have more than one successor. Are you meeting? Are you talking? Are you passing the bull around to figure out what everybody wants? Because if you aren't, you need to get your act together very quickly to get some certainty, okay? What does fairness look like? We alluded to that, but fairness is not a piece of pie. So here's the golden question. At your family meeting and before, you can use my profile sheets, which are in the book. Ask them, what does fairness look like to you? And most next-gen millennials and Gen Xers will tell me, Elaine, I just want my parents to enjoy the fruit of their labor. I said most. Then there are the kids who say, I want my dad to die so I can collect his life insurance policy. And you're thinking, who are these kids? Well, they exist, okay? So that's not good. That'd make it a lot easier, right? We're all into easy, right?
I didn't hear that.
No. Did you notice father's sitting on this side of the room, son is sitting on this side of the room? They're getting different perspectives. It's all good. So what
He didn't really mean that.
No, I know. He really loves you. That's okay. That's good. But the reason you know he really loves you is because you've already started having family meetings and you've already got a plan in place. So the thing is who is the ultimate decision maker? So on your sheets or on your seats are these little white sheets that you can fill out. And these are like what thought sheets. These are the Elaine Froese thought sheets. What I need you to do is, if you want Ultimate Decision Maker, I will send this to you in digital form and give it to you. But what it is it helps you define who goes, here you go. There's lots of, if you don't have one, just put your hand up. There's lots at the front here. What it helps you to define is who's making decisions. So Ian and Wes are collaboratively making decisions on marketing and capital asset purchasers. But Wes still does a lot of the daily planning, the daily work stuff. And this is actually our farm. So there we are, putting in a mini bulk into the conveyor to go into one of the several customers that's rolling onto our farm even now as we speak. So Ultimate Decision Maker, because you can get a plan in place, but what's the management plan for you to be a better decision maker? And does mom still want to do the books? Elaine Froese doesn't do books because my weakness is details. I've always had somebody else be the bookkeeper. That's just the way it's going to be. So you have to know what your skill sets are, and don't expect your daughter-in-law, just because she's female and likes to print neatly, that she's the bookkeeper. That's not fair. Okay, you need to have that conversation. Also, how big is big enough? How many sows in that barn? How many market hogs? How many extra acres of rented land? And oh, by the way, in Ontario, your landlord could die. And I know you like the handshake approach, I do too, but that's got to stop, because what's happening in my world is the landlord dies, and then his lovely children from Toronto say, the rent's doubling, or you can buy this for $23,000 an acre by next Friday. So you're putting yourself at risk if you don't have some long-term strategies for that. And on my blog, there's also an article on landlord relationships, because there's an art to having tailgate conversations. Okay? So here's the other piece about the generations, is brokenheartedness and crushed spirits. And this is not what you hear in your typical farm succession transitioning the generation seminar. I have a young man who's put 15 years of sweat equity, blood, sweat, and tears into his father's farm. His mother died. His dad got lonely more than once. So his dad has made some interesting financial discussions, which have impacted him severely, because he still doesn't have the signature on the transfer of the home quarter that he put a very expensive house on. And why did that house go there? Because his mom said it could. But mom's not here. And I'm not telling you sad stories just to entertain you. I'm trying to kick your butt to get stuff done, because he no longer feels appreciated. He doesn't trust the management of his father, who's promised him things. And when they have courageous conversations with coaches and accountants, nothing changes. So what's your plan B if you can't get this to work? But again, somebody said in here, Elaine, I need to have a balance between family and the farm. Because that last piece there is called flex time off. I met with a very large family in Alberta, large farm, large acreage, and he's going on a holiday because he's burnt to crisp. I also suspect he may have depression. And that wasn't popular when I said that. And why would I say that? Because I'm a survivor of a very severe postpartum depression. I spent almost all of 1984 in a psych ward, and I've had 23 ECTs, which made me better, which I'm very thankful for. And I've been healthy for over 31 years. Why do I say that? Because I want all of you to take care of yourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, so you can make really good decisions. Because when you look at this list, if Ian feels appreciated, if he trusts his parents to be true to their word, if we talk about the hard things, and if we have meaningful work and a culture on our farm that's fun to be there, then of course we're going to go fishing in the fishing boat that we bought Wes for Father's Day. That Elaine bought Wes for Father's Day and Ian picked up. Because you know the next gen loves to spend the parents' money. Did you know that? That's kind of how it works, right? Is whoever has the equity or whatever. But anyway, that's a whole fishing boat story. Okay, here's some more questions. Elaine, $80,000 would be my life living expense. Would like to be able to pull out sweat equity when when I have big purchases for personal purchases. Okay, there's another question. How do you compensate for sweat equity? And if you want the sweat equity article that was written by my management friends in Manitoba, just write sweat equity article on your little white page and I'll send that to you, because some fathers and mothers compensate for sweat equity by fair family price. So that 100 acres over there that you'd like to purchase, the fair family price is not $200,000 or $20,000 an acre or whatever the going rate for land is in your area. I know in different parts of Ontario it's different. Let's say the fair family price would be 50% of fair market value. Are you willing to sell your land for 50% of fair market value to your kids? I am, but my husband's not. Ooh, then you got some conversations to have. Here's another question. Elaine, we are still meeting, but we're still avoiding. Yeah, so you're meeting, but you're not getting the issues on the table. So when's that going to stop, okay? So you need some new business models. This is typically what the young farmers want. They want to know that they have money to buy things. They want to grow their businesses. They need to service debt, but they really, really want respect. Ian comes home from college and says, Dad, we're growing hemp. Do you know you need a criminal record check to grow hemp in Canada? It's true. And it's very hard to grow hemp because it grows really, really high, sticks in your combine, and the stubble, guys, is this high. I do not deliver meals to the fields in hemp stubble. I go to the edge of the field and say, you can come here because I'm not walking through that to get to you. Okay? But it's also very profitable. So Wes, when he got this idea from Ian to grow hemp, didn't say, that's a stupid, crazy, idiotic idea, Ian. He just said, hey, bud, show me the contract. Show me the business plan. And that was net, I think, $700 an acre. It was great. And now Ian's trying to find a way for us to process the fiber, because that's net $2,400 an acre if we could get it processed, right? So you look at the different strategies you have for marketing your hogs, or marketing your livestock, or whatever you're trying to market your soybeans, your corn for. You want to see what different options are, right? So they need this. So great meetings need to start happening at your house. All of you need to go to Staples and buy this flip chart. It used to be $298. You write it off as a farm expense, because when I do a meeting with you, or when you do a meeting with your family, you get to put these circles and things down on the piece of paper so that you can actually see what people are thinking, feeling, needing, doing, and wanting. So here's the line. I think that $100,000 would be a reasonable draw for us from this farm. I want you to gain some ownership. I need you to go to FCC or your lender of choice to tell me how much you and your spouse are willing to buy into this farm. Are those hard conversations to have? Are they? For some of you, they are. For some of you, they aren't. So I need you to start having those conversations. Okay? The other thing that you can do after you buy the flip chart is to buy a pack of index cards. And these become your undiscussable cards. So when you're talking with your spouse, you write down, what is it we're not talking about? And you know what? We need to talk about trust. So you actually write trust down on the card. And then when you come to the meeting, these are kind of like your cheat sheet. This is so any of you over 45 can remember what you were going to talk about, right? Because sometimes you don't remember what you really needed to talk about unless you write it down. The other thing is having agenda and timelines and emailing the minutes. We all use email. Some of my families use Google Docs. You can use Dropbox, cloud sharing, whatever technology you want to use. But have a way of keeping everybody informed. So if you want a very simple template, just write down an activity log and I'll send you the activity log. But this is the payoff. Dr. Cole's research at Virginia Tech, one of his grad students, 400 farms, 6 states. The families that met together regularly, use a system of better communication, we're 21% more profitable. What would it look like to your operation next year to be 21% more profitable just by the fact that you talked between the generations? How exciting would that be? Okay? So some of you are action communicators like my husband, concise, direct, want to get it done. Some of you are process communicators like my bookkeeper. I left the 3 off the bottom. I left the period off the bottom just to bug those of you who love to do bookkeeping and process stuff, the engineers in the room. Some of you are more like me that want to have more chattiness and more people communication, and some of you are more like my son in terms of idea communication. Again, On your sheets, if you want the communication styles assessment to find out how everybody in your family is different, you can check that off and I'll send it to you. But as a coach, I find out how people are wired because the degree of intensity for getting stuff done in my husband is 53 out of a score of 64. My son, not so much. But my son is not lazy. He's just highly people-oriented. So he's our salesman because he's wired for the people communication and innovation. So on your farm team, are you using tools to help you decide and figure out who likes to do what? We have a 27-year-old airplane mechanic working on a seed farm. He saved us thousands of dollars because of his ability. Will we do anything we can to keep him? Yes, including sending him to Mexico with MasterCard points. Okay, I'm going to give you another time to vote. Now that I've talked to you a little bit more in this conversation, you get to vote again and we'll see if anything's changed. Are you avoiding? What are your excuses for not doing this work? No time to plan, which is what you told me last time. Avoiding conflict, it's too complex, or you don't want to leave. Be honest. Polls are open. How do you ask somebody what they're afraid of? Hey, Dad, went to hear Elaine Froese at the London Pork Symposium conference. She said I could ask you hard questions. When can we have that conversation? Have it after lunch, when everybody is eaten and has a full stomach. Do not have it in harvest or when you're shipping out pigs and everybody's tense. Those are not good times. You pick your times of when you're going to have these hard conversations, okay? Going once, going twice. Avoiding conflict. See, now you've changed your excuse. You've now switched from 12% to no time to plan to 40% of you are avoiding conflict. Okay, this is your chance to use your phone. Ask me your hardest question. This workshop is about you. Ask me your hardest question. Why are you avoiding conflict? What is it that you're avoiding? I have a conflict dynamic profile that can tell you what your hot buttons are. My hot buttons are people who will not talk to me and people who are unreliable. My constructive conflict behavior is very good, which it should be because that's what I do for a living. But my destructive behavior would be winning at all costs because I'm a highly competitive person. I also value independence. My daughter-in-law values teamwork. All of us in our family have a huge value for honesty, integrity, and reputation. So what is the culture? What are you practicing? And what are you afraid of? Okay, so out of this list, text me. Oh, you guys texted me. Good, you're learning how to use your phones. It's awesome. How do you work with a sibling who has a mental health issue? You take that sibling to the doctor and get an assessment. And you also talk about what are the supports in the community place, like a mental health worker, psychiatric appointments, and staying on your medication. That's how you work with a sibling who has a mental health issue, and you have to name it, guys. We cannot pretend. Belle did that whole series about Let's Talk and getting more awareness about destigmatizing mental health. I actually have a case like this right now where the father knowingly made one of his sons a business partner, a shareholder, who has significant lifelong mental health issues. Was that a wise thing to do? No, but it was done with nastiness, okay? Our fear is that the kids, thank you for your honesty. Our fear is that the kids are not ready to take over, Elaine, for the farm to be successful. How do you know when they are ready? What parameters have you put in place? What tests have you done? Wes and I left the farm for 3 weeks to go to New Zealand. And typically when we come home from an away holiday, Wes will drive around the farm and say, but he doesn't do that anymore because his wife is a coach. It's very hard being married to me, don't you know? Because I'll say, why are you frustrated? He said, they didn't get enough work done. How do you know that? So I said, let's ask Ian what happened. So we asked Ian, what happened while we were gone? The guy's truck broke down. Guys couldn't deliver. There was a blizzard. There was a power outage. There might be 5 different reasons why X amount of work didn't get done. Oh, and by the way, all the marketing got done and all this other pencil and computer work got done. See, that's the other thing in agriculture. We put a big value on what we can see. You love to plant corn because you can see it done. Do you see your tax efficiency plan being done? No, because it's in your head. It's intellectual. It's on paper. You don't see it inside your laptop. But and remember what Rob said about the physicality of farming has to change from being a physical attachment to being more digitally savvy, to know your data and to have a clear picture of that shadow. That's huge. Because the person who's inside managing and accounting and marketing has just as much value or maybe more as a manager than the guy or the girl who's planting the beans. Yes or no? Maybe you don't agree. But I don't want you to like me. I don't even care if you like me, because I am here to ask you really kick-butt questions. I want you guys to look at this and say, Elaine, we're fighting. We're having meetings, but we're still avoiding. So this is what you do. Bring in a coach. You have Betty Hansen here that's just outside of London. You can bring me in by Skype. I Skype people all over North America. I can't go to every farm that wants my coaching. So use technology to figure out what these fears are and what's going to happen. Loss of identity and control. Who are you if you can't put purple diesel in your Chevy truck anymore, Doug? What's that going to feel like? Right? We don't even have to talk about the wheat board books anymore. Those don't exist anymore, right? So what are your fears? And I've already told you my fear. My fear is becoming a farm widow at a young age and not having this stuff in control and understood.
Young age keeps changing, right?
Young age, yeah, exactly. Whatever young age means. And the whole sweat equity issue. Are you feeling that you're being fairly compensated? We give Ian access to millions of dollars of equipment to put his crop in. We don't charge him custom rates. In some families they do. They make their accounting a little bit cleaner. Some people barter and use labor in exchange for something else, which is okay to a point, but at some point you have to start accounting for it because then it gets forgotten. I have a young Ontario farmer right now whose wife is ready to go because he's being paid less than $15,000 a year. That's not fair. That's slavery, okay? So the boundaries have to happen, and here you'll see I've put down, are you speaking to him as your successor, as a dad, or as a potential business partner? Figure out what hat you're wearing. When I speak to Ian with a firm voice, he says, Mom, why are you getting mad at me? I said, Ian, I'm not getting mad, I'm just getting Irish. What does that mean? It means I'm just getting firm with you. Irish people are very direct, okay? That's part of the culture, and I have an Irish background. So I just say, Ian, I'm not mad at you, but because you have tinnitus and played in a rock band in a chicken coop and don't have good hearing, I need you to hear what I'm telling you because I need you to hear me. Okay? So be really clear about the code of conduct and whether you're talking on the family side or on the business side. And I've also said cut gossip. If I have a problem with JD, I'm not going to go and tell Bev DeFries. I'm going to go straight to JD. It's called a triangle. It's just like on a farm. What happens to moms on farms? They're the chief emotional officer, according to the language of John Fast, because dad's coming in this door saying, rah, 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 rah. Son's coming in this door, rah, 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 rah. And who's in the middle? Mom. Mom wants no more being in the middle. And I didn't pack my referee sweater, but she doesn't want this tug anymore. You have a problem with your farming successor, you go directly to the person you have the problem with. Stop procrastinating. All of us are going to die. My sister died at age 23 on the way home from my farm back to the farm near Winnipeg. Drunk driver. Ended her life. I don't take every day as a surprise. I take every day as a gift because I know what it's like to have no time to say goodbye. What, in your heart of hearts, do you know that you need to do before the corn goes in? Timelines. When am I moving? 2020. Is my will done? Absolutely. Does it get updated every 3 years or when a significant family situation changes or a business changes? You you guys as farmers are avoidance directed. That's why you love Roundup so much, because Roundup takes effect in 10 days and bingy bang, your wild oats are gone. Correct? Unless, of course, there's resistance issues, but we won't talk about the technical part of that. The point is you have to be going towards people. What do you want your life on your farm to look like? What do you want your legacy to be? What is your plan for the next generation to have a crack at management? What is the plan? Okay, put some timelines down. We've already talked about your age needs, but pay attention to this chart that we started off with. It's so important to figure that out, okay? And be nice to Grandpa, because he's living longer and he doesn't necessarily predecease Grandma. And in my book, which you'll read, I hope, my goal is for that book on your chair to be on your toilet tank by Thursday night. Because if it's on your toilet tank in your farmhouse, you'll be reading it. And the women will take an extra copy if they can and give it to another neighbor that they know they want to have it. But Grandpa is a traditionalist. Retirement to Grandpa sometimes might be a reward, but retirement is a dirty word to most farm grandpas and grandmas because they want legacy. Their biggest blessing is to see the farm be successful to yet another and another generation. So be kind to your grandparents, but also not kind that you let them get away with murder, i.e. they leave their house and move to the care home or move to a condo in Tilsonburg, and that farmhouse then becomes the public cottage for all the rest of the siblings. No, that farmhouse is an asset the farm needs to use. Okay? Also, where is the pushback coming from? All of you in 4-H, do the pledge with me right now. I pledge my head to clear thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health to better living for my club, my community, and my country. Wow. So rub your head. Everybody just touch your head right now, because this is important. You need to remember this piece, and if you touch your head, is your pushback for communication between the generation, is it because it's something in your head intellectually that you're pushing back? It's because you're not happy about signing a shareholder agreement because you don't want to tell your lawyer or accountant you don't really understand what it says. And that would be stupid. There is no such thing as a stupid question. Understand what you are signing. Okay, now I want you to touch your heart. This is where the deep emotion is. I told you that in January of 1992 we went to the tax accountant and did our planning for our succession plan. On June the 16th, Dad drives onto the yard with his camera. We go, Dad, what are you doing? He said, I'm taking a picture. Why today? Because today is the last day that this farm is mine. And that's the emotion. Is it going to look different tomorrow? On June 17th, 1992? Not really. But he wanted to capture in his mind exactly what the farm looked like on the day that he let go of ownership. That's the emotion. The emotion is fighting over, can I put my horse on this farm when my brother owns it and my parents don't? Can we still have family gatherings here? Can we still play in the ravine? You would not believe what people get upset about. To you, it thinks it's the little stuff. But remember, there's a saying in Proverbs or in wisdom literature, it's the little foxes that spoil the vineyard, right? It's the little things. And so we have to make quick repairs. So in your heart, the decisions that you make, are you sleeping well? And if you're not sleeping, then trust your intuition because something's not right, because the third piece is where your gut is. And we have all kinds of neurons in our gut connected to our brain, which is why people say, I can't trust this. And so you said to me on the phone, Elaine, we are afraid that the next gen cannot manage well enough. Well, what standard operating procedures are you putting in place? How are you looking at different tasks and job descriptions and saying, you know, Ian, you're doing a really good job of this, but somebody else needs to take care of this because you're not very tidy, or whatever the situation might be. And our son is very hardworking. And he's very talented, but he's so different from his dad. And that's okay. Here's another word you need to write down. Different is not wrong, It's just different. Okay? Our Swiss trainee went back to Switzerland and started cultivating the fields at an angle like we do on the prairies. His neighbors thought he'd lost it by going to Canada. That guy is one of the most successful farmers in Switzerland. He's extremely innovative. He doesn't care what tradition says. He wants to go with what it is. What is your communication plan? How are you going to start talking to each other? When is your next family business meeting going to be? And if you can't do it by yourself, hire a facilitator to get you started, okay? What are you making assumptions about? Remember I said change your questions, change your life? If you go to her website, theinquiryinstitute.com, this is the choice map that you can do to download. But basically all you have to understand is there's a fork in the road. Every morning we wake up, are we going to learn more about being better farmers today? Or are we just going to be nasty and put everybody in the pit? And you guys have pits, really stinky, slurry, ugly, stinky ones. I know because I have a hog barn that's on my land. And I get reminded of how wonderful that smells in terms of the fertilizer that goes on our land from that hog barn. But think about what choices are you making every day to learn more about what other people need, about what you need, and what choices you're making to make people feel judged, because that's not what they want. How are you going to communicate better? Are you going to let your son date a young woman and then break up with her on his cell phone by texting her and say, I don't love you anymore, we're breaking up? By text? It happens. I'd be horrified if that happened to me. It's easy, yes. It's easy and it makes people feel disposable. When someone sends a text, can you tell whether they're angry or happy with you? Sometimes you can't tell, right? Well, if the emoticon says smiley face, yeah. But whenever it says LOL, I didn't know, I was going, what's LOL? Laugh out loud. And then I thought, what's that triangle thing with the 3? Well, that's supposed to be a heart. Well, like, who explains all the emoticons to people who are boomers? Come on, guys, it's not fair. Okay, my point is how are you going to communicate better going forward? Only one of you was willing to tell me what your fears were. Sometimes the best thing you can do is pick up the phone and have an actual conversation. Farmers in the prairies are putting more acres under their iron. I have 2 young men managing 20,000 acres. And they said, Elaine, we're having a hard time talking to each other. I said, well, I just have one little suggestion. We call it the 5 o'clock check-in. At 5 o'clock, you each phone each other or text, but I would prefer a phone call because I think communication as a loop is better with a phone. I'd like you to phone each other and say, hey, Charlie, tomorrow we need to do this and this. I'm at this farm, you're at that farm. Anything else I need to know? Nope, sounds good to me. See you at the shop or at the meeting place at 8 a.m. So there's no disconnect about expectation. Remember at the beginning I said my goal for you is clarity of expectation. When I get back to my farm after my speaking and coaching this month, and we start seeding at the end of April, I am on call to this device. Whatever Wes and Ian need from me, I am going to do. That is my role. I'm not going to be speaking to Ontario pork producers or dairy farmers or anybody else in May, because May job 1 is get the crop in. Your job 1 every day is to communicate clearly to your farm business team. And it's the operational stuff. But the other job you have, besides operational, which is what you find easy, because it's easy to decide what the nutrient mix is going to be for the hogs. And it's easy to decide which corn variety you're going to use. So that's all the operational stuff. That's where your heads are going to go all the time. But what I'm challenging you to do is to have some meetings that are strategy. Because what's killing the spirit and breaking the spirit of the next generation on your farm is not knowing what the plan is. And I've just spent the last hour with you talking about the plan. Certainty of agreements, clarity of expectations and job descriptions, and a commitment to just keep taking the next step. Talk to your spouse during this convention. Talking is the work. But there's a Chinese proverb that says, talking does not cook rice. How many succession planning seminars or communication things have you gone to? 5, 6, 7? And a woman in Saskatoon comes home and she says, Elaine, stop. I'm not going to any more seminars ever. I go, Jane, what's wrong? She says, Elaine, I have him and my sons, and no matter how many seminars we go to, nothing ever changes. And you heard about that this morning, right? Change is inevitable, but growth is optional. We all get to choose what we're doing with the changing technology. Here's another question, and I'm going to let you go soon. My fear, Elaine, is it's my spouse's family farm. Yes. I fear that when my spouse dies, that I won't be given the option to farm. And how do you get protected with that? With really good agreements, and buy-sell agreements, and gifting agreements. Because we have told our daughter-in-law that no matter what happens to Ian, if he was to get killed, she would always be taken care of. And that's our promise to our daughter-in-law. We are not going to let her be like the daughter-in-law in the town where the parents were very nasty, which of course is a very bad choice. The best way to prevent divorce on a farm is to bless, not to curse. Once your son or daughter has chosen their lifelong spouse, you have no other choice but to bless that marriage. Because if you bless and respect that marriage, she is not going to take the land that you roll over to him. He gets killed, and she's not going to sell it to the neighbors in spite because you were so nasty to her. And that's exactly what happened to a family I know of. And I just, the wisdom around what people really need, right, is love and respect. So let's just close off here. If you want more conflict information, which you told me you need, you can go to my website and click off the toolbox. And I can also do dynamic profiles if you want to learn more about your good behavior and your bad behavior, or maybe next year we'll come back and we'll just talk about conflict. Think about how important the relationship is, because if the relationship with your son or daughter or wife or husband is really important, then you're going to go down to the bottom here and try and get win-win for everybody, okay? Also remember what I said about encouraging the heart of your business. Elaine, I would work many more hours on this farm if I just knew that my sweat equity was going to pay off into ownership, and on what day that's going to happen, okay? And here's another rocket science tip. Ask for what you need. You do not have because you do not ask. Ask. It might be no, it might be not yet, it might be next year, but ask. So when my parents-in-law said, what would you do if Wes died? And they said, we'd take the farm back. I go, no, I am staying here. And right away, in 3 minutes, they said, okay, Elaine, sounds good. And those are the what-if conversations I want you to have. So go home and start having scenario what-if conversations with your spouse and with your family. And be ready to act. So here's the last vote. Are you still resisting having a plan and talking with the next generation? Are you feeling empowered? Do you think you have some more tools now that you've sat here for the last little bit? Or do you think it's time for you to make dates for conversations? So A, if you're still resisting. B, if you're feeling empowered. C, if you have the tools. And D, if you're making dates for conversations in your head. Everybody vote? Oh, good. 15% of you are going to have a family meeting. That makes my heart sing. On behalf of ElaineFroese.com and Farm Family Coaching, which is the work I do, I just want you to think about the fact that it's your farm, it's your family, and it's your choice. So blessings on your journey to get clarity, to get certainty, and a commitment to act. You have my phone number, you know where I live, and I look forward to hearing your story. All the best. Thank you.